Senator Sepulveda, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm not thrilled with what's happened in the general elections in the nation, but we still have work to do.
What was your take on Somos el Futuro, the conference?
Somos is supposed to be an opportunity for Latino groups to go to all groups to go to Puerto Rico and create working relationships with the local authorities with the island, and also for people to meet that otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to meet in person, to exchange ideas, to develop relationships, to work on policy and legislation, to meet with statewide, citywide, countywide elected officials. It's a great opportunity. What I'd like to see more from Somos is more involvement with the local community. Puerto Rico is economically in a very tough position still. The junta decides where money goes, and they're more concerned about paying the holders of the debt than hospitals in Puerto Rico or schools in Puerto Rico, where they're closing them down at an alarming rate. There's been a decrease in the population of Puerto Rico. About half a million persons have left the island because of the economic situation and opportunities. So what I'd like to see is more development, exchange of ideas, so that the island itself can be helped. It's always been my complaint from the very first time I went to Somos about 30 years ago, is that I want to see more exchange between New York legislators and legislators in Puerto Rico. And I'm not seeing enough of that. Other than that, we're okay.
I have a question related to Somos, Senator. The move to the Dominican Republic. Mm-hmm. Two people have approached me. Is that a real thing for next year? Or has that essentially, is that case been closed? What's the latest?
I'm not sure yet. You're hearing different comments. You're hearing different things. But the reality is that, I do a delegation trip for the last 3 years in the Dominican Republic. We started with 5 elected officials, then we went to 21, and last year we had 61 individuals. And I'm pretty sure that next year, when we do it, we already have people requesting to participate. We're talking about probably going to have near 100 people. When we do it, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of logistical issues that you have to be resolved. There are, it's another country, so you have issues about transportation, passports. It would be a hard job, a difficult task to do at the level that they do it in Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico is a United States colony. But it'd be very difficult. But I would be helpful if they wanted to do it. I already have the experience and what I call the blueprint on how to do delegations in the Dominican Republic. We do more work with the local officials. We create legislation that we've done, exchange of students, exchange of ideas. I'd like to see more of that in Puerto Rico, that we do ourselves in our delegations in the Dominican Republic. But if they want to do something like this in the Dominican Republic and they reach out for my assistance, I'm willing to help in any way that I can.
Senator, we pre-election, we saw that Trump had a rally in Madison Square Garden, and the comedian referred to the island of Puerto Rico as garbage, as trash. Looking at the returns and the numbers, and someone like yourself that spends time in Orlando, and we've heard about the influx of Puerto Ricans that have moved to that community. Well, first, have you seen the returns and the numbers? I saw one, exit. You saw a review or of the outcome of the election. Latino males majority voted for Trump. Did you think did that comment have an impact? And again, that's just Latinos broadly. Didn't sort of specify, break it down. Do you think that comment had an impact, considering the direction in which Pennsylvania went, Florida went, right? Even parts of the Bronx here, your home borough. What are your thoughts? Did it motivate? Because I kept seeing numbers that if it were the same metric, Biden, right, and the number of Puerto Rican members of the community that were registered, that they would overwhelmingly, right, win the day in terms of Pennsylvania and other battleground states based on the registration. Right. Thoughts on what what the results were? Have you ever been able to see any numbers? And do you think it made an impact on the turnout?
If it had an impact, it wasn't the impact that we wanted. When you are referred to as a garbage island, I would think that more people would be up in arms about that. I didn't see enough of that in their election results. In Pennsylvania, he did very well. Trump did very well. In other areas, he didn't do as well. But we have to continue to see more of these numbers. The big issue is that a lot of the voters that were there were not. I mean, they just bought into the Trump lying machine. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's lied over 45,000 times in 10 minutes, if that's possible. But the results were not what I wanted. Certainly, I think that, generally speaking, Latinos who voted for Trump didn't really look at his record, didn't really understand what his election meant to Latinos throughout the country. So we have to see how we can do a greater job within the Democratic Party to bring all those who voted for just a god-awful human being named Trump, how we bring them back to the fold into the Democratic Party. We have failed at that. I think we have failed at messaging, terribly at messaging, and the Democratic Party usually is not the best at messaging. We have to figure it out. Look, here in New York, we did relatively well, even though there was an uptick in Republican turnout. But, we only lost one seat in the Senate. We did our job on the congressional races. So we did well here, but we didn't do as well as I wanted in Pennsylvania. And I think we have to come together, all Latinos elected officials, and do a better job also of letting our electorate know what Trump and his agenda means for people in the Latino community. And it's going to be a very bad agenda. You can see it already. He's talking about rounding up immigrants. I mean, just yesterday, he said that they're working on that already. So those who thought that Project 2025 was not a reality, you're seeing it every day. You're seeing his appointments. I mean, Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. I mean, this is a guy who's a pedophile. His Border Patrol chief is a former NYPD officer who he just reeks of hatred. Whenever he speaks on television or interviews, he comes off as such a hateful human being who despises immigrants for reasons I don't know. Not the kinds of selections that are serious. Elon Musk, to talk about efficiency in government. I mean, this is a guy who's just another god-awful human being. So his appointments are not encouraging us. I think it's going to be a terrible 4 years for people that are Latinos in this country.
Senator, I have you're talking about Latinos and the outcomes in Trump and immigration and deportation and building a wall and all these things he said. And essentially, based on what I'm seeing, it's like a tree falling in the forest. It doesn't seem to motivate, right? Calling Mexican Americans rapists. Mm-hmm. The island of Puerto Rico is a garbage dump, right? I haven't seen it, and as someone who witnessed the a couple of years back, the sort of everyone talking about the Latin explosion with Ricky Martin and right, like there's just the whole thing, and yet we still don't have. I know it's arts and culture and entertainment. Well, when you saw how these folks came out. Some of these celebrities came out on behalf of Harris, right? And it didn't seem to move the needle. And here we are all these years later, and when you talk about the city and state of New York, we still don't have a Latino citywide elected official. Or statewide. Yes. And I don't know at this point when that time is going to come, and it seems like, years go by, years come and they go, and we're still where we were when we started, right?
It's a problem that we as Latinos, for reasons I cannot explain, when it comes to policy, when it comes to political power, we don't act like a monolith, and we should. We had a potential chief judge for the appellate division, the highest court of New York State, the Court of Appeals, the highest court in New York State. They nominated a Latino, Puerto Rican, to be chief judge. And rather than us all coming together and being supportive, to make history, to have the first Latino, he's Puerto Rican, Hector LaSalle, Judge LaSalle. We had the opportunity to get the first Latino chief judge in the history of this state. And we did nothing to defend the candidate. He was an excellent candidate, a man I know for years, who's just an excellent jurist. And even some Latinos voted against him, carried water against him. And I won't name names because some of them are my colleagues, but certainly they did a lot of work to sink that nomination. And so when we act that way, it doesn't give me a warm feeling that we're still not going to come together as a Latino community and push together for items that are important for the Latino community. There are people now that are working, we're organizations that are working together to do things like, for example, I'm working with Assemblywoman Amanda Septimo on a lucha, it's called Lucha, where we're putting forth policy and budgetary requests from the state. You're seeing other smaller groups coming together, but there's no universal program, policy points, or anything that are developing so far. And I think we also need a Latino leader that has the kind of presence that can unify all of us into a group. And, that's also been a problem. When some of us get into power, then we start pulling for this group and that group, and we forget that we should all work together because that's how we're going to get empowerment in this state and in this country. And that is, I think, the reason why, even though you had all these celebrities, nominating Harris, you had especially after the comments at the Madison Square Garden about Puerto Rico being a garbage island. But we have to come together politically to work better and say, I don't care if you're Dominican or Puerto Rican or Colombian or Ecuadorian, we all have common needs. We're all Latinos. Puerto Ricans have a little different situation because they are natural-born citizens. Although many Trump supporters don't realize that Puerto Rico is not a foreign country. The Dominican community, the Colombian community, there are more immigrant issues that are important to them. Fighting for immigrants is important. But at the end of the day, if an Latino immigrant is kicked out of this country, that's a stain on all of us as leaders, as Latino leaders, that we've allowed this country to head in that direction, allow something like that to happen. And hopefully one of the Latino leaders in this state will become the standard bearer, will be the person that everybody says, he's the person that has that gravitas to bring us all together in the state. And I'm hoping it happens relatively quickly, because if not, we're going to continue to be ignored.
What is the response to Lucha been so far?
We're still at the very beginning. You've had several, we had a good turnout in the first press conference they had. You had several Latino leaders, elected officials there, and you had non-Latino elected officials there that were participating. It's the beginning of Lucha, but certainly I hope that we can continue to work together and create substantive policies, budgetary asks for things that specifically to the Latino community. Hopefully that'll continue, but it's still relatively early. Time will tell how successful that is.
Name 3 Latino leaders in your lifetime that you think have had a sort of impact in a pan-Latino way.
Well,
that it doesn't have to be present. I mean, it could be throughout your trajectory, your political trajectory. 3 Latinos that you felt had moved the needle, gravitas, or thought about Latinos in a non-monolithic way. Like, let's empower all Latinos, not just whatever particular ethnic group.
Wow. I think one example is not even in New York. It's Chicago, with Luis Sepulveda, that former congressman. He had a district that was not necessarily predominantly Puerto Rican. He had a good mixture of Latino groups. He had Mexicans that were the majority of his district, but he was considered like the lion of the immigrant community. He was very protective. So people looked up to him because his policies were helpful to many people throughout the country. But Cesar Chavez is someone who I believe had the gravitas to bring the nation together. I'm trying to think of anyone in New York that I would say would fit that bill, and I can't really think of anybody immediately. But
I have one.
Who was that?
Dennis Rivera.
Dennis. Okay, you mean not necessarily elected?
No, not necessarily. But he helped folks get elected.
Absolutely, Dennis Rivera.
And he empowered all groups.
Dennis Rivera, you're absolutely right. You know who else was good was Roberto Ramirez. Roberto Ramirez was a very good county leader, very good assemblyman, who really looked out for Latino causes. I think Roberto was one of those individuals. But in terms of like someone like Dennis Rivera's stature, I can't really think of anybody right now.
Not good.
Not good. That's telling. Not good. I mean, you have some people that are elected now that could possibly fill that bill. You know, people like let's say Nina Velasquez, I believe is the longest serving Latina congresswoman or Puerto Rican congresswoman. You have Richie Torres, who's a congressman. You have Adriano Espaillat, obviously, from the Dominican Republic. Locally, another person that I think could do a job would be the DA from Brooklyn, Eric Gonzalez. Eric is a highly respected district attorney, highly respected elected official in the city of New York, and highly respected amongst Latino leaders. I mean, I think the world of Eric. So I think there's one person that could probably unite Latinos in a way that could give us some sense of more power in terms of policy and budget.
What do you think the Trump election? What's the impact on the upcoming mayoral, the primary in June? What do you think the Trump victory means for the mayoral election?
It's hard to say. I can tell you that certainly there will be more of a shift to the right, as you've seen in the recent presidential elections. You'll see more, probably of a higher Republican turnout, but not sufficient to get a Republican mayor. I believe I heard that maybe Rudy Giuliani's thinking of running again. God has to save us all. But right now, look, the Bronx has a city council person who's a Republican with, I think the numbers are 36% Republican turnout. It's going to be, with ranked choice voting, general election. Let's get through the primaries first with ranked choice voting. We'll see. There's still many candidates that I think may come out. Certainly you hear about Cuomo quite often. Tish James, who I think would probably be the most formidable candidate for mayor. You have Zelma Myrie, who's a very bright, very good state senator. I work with him on a regular basis. I believe you have a couple of other individuals that are running. Mandani, I think, has announced. And I think there's another person who I don't think has made the kind of impact to be considered yet a serious mayoral candidate.
Question, if you were to handicap it, like separate of current Mayor Eric Adams, if you were to say who has the best possible chance out of the current field, out of folks that are currently running to potentially beat the current mayor?
Of the names that are being mentioned now?
Right now, of the ones running, not no speculation here. The ones that are declared.
That are running.
Yes.
That are declared.
Or that are out and about already, raising money for the.
Wow, it's kind of hard to say right now. I think the candidate that right now, of all the candidates that have declared, the one I have a lot of respect for is Zelma Myrie, because I've worked with him in the Senate. I think he would probably be one of the better candidates for mayor. But again, I think the list hasn't been completed yet.
Interesting.
Going to run. I think there are going to be others, and I believe that if Tish James runs and jumps in the race, I think that she will probably dominate the field.
All right, we're going to wrap this up soon, Senator. What do you think? What are your priorities coming up to this legislative session? Obviously, you don't have the supermajority anymore, right? You still have a majority. What are the priorities?
Even with a supermajority, we never really try to overcome a veto by the governor in the last 2 years.
Got it.
We work well with the governor.
Yeah.
And you have to respect the leader of your party.
Yeah.
I am working right now. I have been working now for the last 4 years. First with the de Blasio administration and now with the Eric Adams administration, to modify the property tax system in the entire city of New York. We have a major set of bills that are going to be introduced this session, working with the governor, working with our staff and Senate, where we're going to change the way the property tax system is run in the city of New York. Even though we began this 4 years ago, the Court of Appeals issued a ruling a couple of months ago saying that the New York City property tax system was inherently unfair. And so the city has an option of either working with us to create something that's fair or having the courts impose something that they believe is fair. So we've reached some sets of laws, some things that are going to introduce that are going to benefit 70% of homeowners in New York City. Those 30% that are not benefiting or have their taxes up, we're going to create a program to sort of like give them a few years to integrate into the new numbers and so forth. But what you had in New York City, a property tax system where wealthier, more affluent neighborhoods were paying property taxes at almost the same rate as someone who lived in a less affluent neighborhood. In the Bronx, a homeowner was paying equal to someone, let's say, in Malba, in Queens. So what's going to happen now is that now we're going to balance and make the playing field fair, where the people who have homes that are not as affluent will pay their fair share of taxes, of property taxes. And those communities that are more affluent, that have benefited for years because they've basically been subsidized, their taxes, property taxes have been subsidized by less affluent communities. Now we're going to create a system that's fair, and it's going to comply with the Court of Appeals decision a couple of months ago.
All right, let's wrap this up, Senator. Best day in government.
Right now, for me, when I passed green light.
Worst day in government.
The current elections.
Any parting words? Anything I forgot to ask you that you want to mention?
No, it just we're in a time now in our country where we're going to have to really, really reach into our inner souls, especially those who have children, and see if what we've elected now and the policies that are coming, if that is what we want for this country. Hopefully everybody will respond no. So you got to keep the faith. You got to keep working.
Thank you, Senator, for taking the time. It's great catching up.
Yeah, thank you.
We've come full circle, right?
I was on your podcast about 14 years ago, and I tell everybody that you were the original podcaster.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you for your support, and wish me luck. Talk soon. Bye-bye.